Welcome back, legends. I hope you're all amazing. I also hope you're having a fantastic festive season wherever you are in the world. Welcome to another installment of Friday Q&A. It also happens to be New Year's Eve. So on top of all of that, I want to wish you all a happy new year as well. Thank you all so much for your support this year. A special shout out, of course, goes to all my amazing patrons. If you want to sign up to my Patreon, you can follow the link in the video description, and to everybody who has taken the time to check out some Ragdoll music or buy some Ragdoll merch, just like I'm wearing right now. Shameless plug. Again, a massive thank you to all of you. If you've got a question you would like me to answer on next week's Q&A, pop it in the comment section below. We're going to get into this week's questions straight away. Let's do it. Is Ghostbusters a Christmas movie? What even constitutes a Christmas movie anymore? I think since we've had the is Die Hard a Christmas movie debate, that's just gone straight out the window. So I don't even know. What do you all think? Is Ghostbusters a Christmas movie, or is that just one of the most ridiculous questions I have ever asked you? I think for a lot of people, Christmas is a time where you actually get a little bit of time to yourself. You get to catch up on all the albums you didn't get to listen to. You get a chance to maybe play some guitar or spend some time with your loved ones, maybe catch up on some movies you haven't seen for a while. So maybe in that regard, it does count as a Christmas movie, but I feel like I'm stretching that definition quite a bit. Let me know anyway. What's the black guitar with the sound hole in the background of last week's Q&A? Probably this one. This is my Headway C313. These are made up in Matsumoto in Japan, up in the mountains there by the Divisor company. I was able to tour their factory back in, I think, August 2018, and that was amazing. Very, very old school approach to building all their guitars. I think the largest piece of machinery in the factory was either a bandsaw or it was a small CNC that they had to do custom inlays on guitars. But these are really supremely built instruments, and the neck is probably my favorite acoustic neck. It feels and plays more like an electric guitar. Beautiful kind of, what is this, a teardrop style burst on here or something like that. I love the three-tone sunburst. There's this awesome little extra sound hole in here, and it's got a Fishman Inc. preamp, which sounds pretty good, and the guitar just punches. I really like how tight and articulate it is. And what do I have it in? Probably Dadgad? Yeah, there's my Headway. Have I, or will I, ever try a KSR series preamp pedal on this channel? I would love to. The KSR stuff has been on my radar for a long time, especially their amps. KSR and Rev are two companies, along with Fortin, who I think are doing some of the coolest modern high gain amps out there. I've never had a chance to play one though, although most of the clips that I hear of these things on the interwebs sound pretty amazing, and it seems like that pedal would do the equivalent of what like the Rev G3 and G4 do, which I find pretty interesting. I've never tried a Rev amp either. I hope to do that at some point very soon as well, but the series seems like a beast of a preamp pedal. I really want to try one. Have I been having trouble getting gear over the last year? Yeah, big time, just like so many other people out there. I am very fortunate that I've now got relationships with manufacturers around the globe who are happy to send me stuff to demo on the channel. So I'm certainly fortunate and privileged in that regard. But the thing that really drove home some of the supply chain issues for me was I love using Lixx NanoWeb 10 to 52 strings on most of my guitars, and Lixx have halted production of those for the last year or so, and that freaked me out a little bit. I immediately went on eBay and tried to find as many sets as possible to get me through, so I've kind of been stockpiling them and hoarding them. I feel like I've been fortunate though, where the main gear that I rely on to play live with, Fractal audio gear in particular, gets free firmware updates. So you get free goodies with stuff like that. And then there's been a lot of great software which has come out over the last 2 years as well, which I've made good use of. But yeah, just so much stuff like picks, strings, tubes for amps. You know, I still have a large amp collection that needs to be maintained. Stuff like contact cleaner, stuff like Ethernet cables, you know, just the sort of stuff that I think most people took for granted. it's all in short supply and it's hard to get. And Australia is pretty far down the totem pole when it comes to the general supply chain anyway. So yeah, it's been an impact on me, just like it's been an impact on a lot of people. But you know, I've got a roof over my head and I've been able to eat and my family are all safe. So these are very much first world problems for me. See a Synergy ADA MP1 module. Look, I would love to see one of these. I wonder if they'd be able to even implement it with those weird squishy buttons. I don't think many people would want that, but my understanding is the person who designed the MP1, Todd Langner, passed away quite a few years ago. So having Todd involved in the project wouldn't be a possibility at all, but we've seen with the Synergy 2CP, obviously that is a Mark IIc Boogie preamp basically, and Boogie weren't involved with that particular project. So, you know, I think if anybody understands the inner workings of classic preamps, Stephen Fryette, who works with Synergy a lot, would know what's up. So yeah, if Fryette's still involved and Egnator's still involved in that whole system, which they're pretty instrumental to it, you know, it might be something that they resurrect. Should we all start an online petition or something, just like the people who got the Boss HM2 Wazacraft to happen? Should we start a Synergy MP1 petition? I'd be happy to do that, and I'd be happy to sign it, and maybe sign it under a few of my aliases as well. Would I consider doing a Polish My Tone series where people send me, for example, their Fractal audio presets or recordings that they've done, and I do what I did on last week's video where I kind of polished up that EVH Iconic preset. It wasn't a preset, it was a clip. I just put a bunch of pitch detune on it and added reverb and some EQ, and that was fairly well received. So thanks for entertaining me with that one. Yeah, that could be interesting. Maybe if I could get 5 to 10 people to send me their presets or their DI guitar tones, I would definitely have a crack at that in good fun and good faith. So let me know if that's something you'd all like to see and hear. What are the advantages of using a standalone interface instead of just using the interface in my Axe FX3? I will say that I do use the built-in interface of the Axe whenever I am cutting guitars and I need to cut a clean DI to go with them. It's so amazingly simple having that workflow where I can just assign it as separate tracks with different inputs on the USB interface. I think it's like input 1 and 2 would be my process guitar and input 5 is the DI. Makes reamping really easy as well. So I do use it in certain situations, but it doesn't have any dedicated mic preamps, so I use my Universal Audio Apollo Twin because it has amazing sounding mic preamp emulation in there. I use their Neve preamp sim for my voice on everything, and if I'm recording Ryan singing, or if I want to cut guitars through that interface, I'll use that preamp sim on there just to add some extra grit on there. It sounds fantastic. I've got a bunch of their compressor plugins and their EMT 140 plate reverb sim. It's all great sounding stuff. To me, if you want, you know, amazing sounding emulations of guitar amps and effects, the Fractal stuff is right at the top of the pile. The UA stuff is the equivalent for studio gear, in my opinion. And, you know, they do have their kind of little closed system where you need to have the hardware interface to run their plugins, and the plugins are a little bit expensive, but, you know, I only need a few of them, and it means I don't need to have a whole bunch of outboard studio gear, which would run up thousands of dollars. It is close enough for rock and roll for me. So it's mostly just a personal workflow thing here, where having the UA as basically the brain works really well for me, and then I can use the Axe FX3 and my Samson SM10 mixer together with that to basically give me a bunch of extra inputs, and I can connect them digitally, and it all just works really well. So it's just my personal workflow, and that's why it works for me. What do I think of Crazy Lixx? I love Crazy Lixx. They are definitely one of my favorite kind of newer retro 80s style bands. I was really bummed. We were meant to do a show with them back in March of 2020 at Melodic Rock Festival, and right at the last minute, they weren't able to make it out for various reasons, and they were probably the band I was looking forward to seeing the most. And hopefully they come out to Australia at some point soon, and if it would be possible at all, I would love to do a show with them, because they just capture the energy and the vibe so well of that particular era. And their singer is actually on a synthwave EP that just came out as well. I'll try to remember to link that one in the video description. A massive shout out to my buddy Carl for hooking me up with that one. I gotta remember what that one's called. Midnight Danger, Nights at Lake Milson. That is the one. If you love synthwave with smoky sounding sax and some awesome 80s style rock vocals on one track, go and check that one out. Again, thanks to Carl for putting me onto that one. And yeah, that's the singer from Crazy Lixx on that track. If you're into the 80s thing, go and check them out. They do it better than anyone else at the moment, in my opinion. On the hologram electronics Microcosm, have I checked them out? Have I had a chance to play one? I haven't had a chance to play one, but I'm very aware of the Microcosm. It seems to be one of the coolest new pedals to come out recently. And, you know, I love the YouTube channel Knobs, and I love listening to kind of bleepy, bloopy, ambient guitar stuff every now and then. It seems like the Microcosm is just that entire genre in a single pedal. That and the Chase Bliss Blooper are two pedals I really want to get around to checking out in the new year, mostly because they just seem like they're designed to basically be like inspiration machines. You plug them in, you twist knobs, and before you know it, you're making music that you never knew existed, or stuff that's not necessarily in your head. I love pieces of gear that can get you that sound in your head. I also love pieces of gear that just surprise you with what they put out. You know, you put in normal guitar and you get amazing soundscapes out of it. I've got, I don't know if you can see it right here, but the Poly Bebo, I've actually mounted this with a couple of other pedals on here. Like I've got a piece of wood and I've put them on there with dual lock, but they're on my kind of slanted rack on my desk so I can access them, so I can twist a bunch of knobs. It's basically my pseudo Euro rack out of guitar pedals, and the Bebo has a bunch of patches in that can do a similar thing where I just plug that in, and sometimes I'm like, well, I didn't know this is what I was going to be doing, but this is what I'm doing. So got to get around to checking out a Microcosm. Has anybody out there got one? What sort of stuff are you doing with it? Let me know. Is there a piece of rack gear that I never use, but I can't take it out of my rack? I think a large appeal for a lot of us with rack gear is just having cool lights and all that kind of stuff. You know, the aesthetic part of it being in a rack is a big thing. And for me, the unit that kind of comes to mind with that is definitely the Roland SDE 1000. It's a great sounding delay. It is a mono delay. There are just other units which I prefer for delay, but it looks so cool. I love the look of those Roland rack units. I actually have a bunch of them in a 5-space rack. I've got the SDE, the SRV 2000, the DEP5, the GP8. I'm trying to remember, is there another one? Maybe there's only the 4. Maybe I put something else in there, but I just look at that. Oh, I've got my SPX90 in there as well. Maybe the SPX90 would qualify for that. I feel like those sounds that I love from that I've been able to replicate really, really tightly with the Axe-FX 3, and the SPX90 is really annoyingly noisy as well, but it just looks dope in there. You know, it's the look of an era and it's the sound of an era, even though I feel like I've got that sound on lock in a much more accessible way. That's just kind of one unit I don't think I'll ever get rid of. Same thing for all those Roland units as well. They just have this amazing aesthetic about them, which I think is so unique to the era. It does remind me of some of the classic 80s synthesizers as well, so maybe that plays into it too. Have I ever tried a PRS Acoustic? I have tried a few of their SE acoustics in music stores, which I always find music stores are maybe one of the least inspiring environments to ever try gear out in. And I thought they were pretty good. Like a lot of their SE stuff, it feels pretty solid. I've spent so much time with my Headway acoustic and with my Cole Clark acoustic, though, that they just feel like home to me, and it does take a little while with acoustic instruments. I feel they're harder to judge than electric instruments. You pick up a good electric guitar, you pick up a custom shop Strat or a Sur or a PRS SE, and you kind of get the vibe straight away. With acoustics, so much of it is the listening environment that you're in, and that's when you really hear the character of them. But I would love to try one of their high-end ones. I would also love to try out like their cheapest acoustic guitar, or maybe feature it on the channel and see what you get for the money. And I feel like I've done a lot of these questions in today's video. If that's something you're interested in hearing, also let me know in the comments. What's with all the weird guitar faces when I play guitar? The person who asked this question must be new around here, because as we all know, the harder you gurn, the better you sound. What pedals would I recommend to complement something like a Fractal FM3, for example, if you wanted to offload reverb processing to a different unit? Something that I've talked about on the channel before, I would recommend the Poly Bebo. Amazing sounding convolution reverbs in there, really good sounding algorithmic reverbs, and a whole bunch of just weird sounds like the granular reverb in there, which is so interesting and stunning. It's also a synthesizer as well, if you're into that kind of thing. It does have a modular layout, and it does have a little bit of a learning curve in that regard. Otherwise, something like an Eventide H9, a Strymon Big Sky if you just want reverb, or even something like a Source Audio Collider, which would do delay and reverb. And hopefully I'll have a Collider soon to demo on the channel. I think I might have mentioned that the sound designer or algorithm designer for the Kurzweil Rumor, which I featured recently on the channel, now works at Source Audio. So when I do get a Collider, I will do a comparison between those two units, because I think that's pretty interesting. You could even just go out and get something as straightforward as like one of the Mua R7 reverbs, which is really, really tiny. It's got a pretty decent hall mode and room mode in there, and some shimmers and things like that. I think it just depends on your budget and exactly what you want, if it's a set and forget thing or if it's versatile. Thanks again for this week's questions, legends. I hope you all have a fantastic new year. I hope you all have a fantastic week as well. If you got questions for next week, put them in the comment section below. And if you heard a bunch of weird elephant noises during the video, it's just that time of year where people are just driving around the corner in their noisy cars. So yeah, I actually don't have a pet elephant called Stampy or anything like that, as cool as that would be. If there's anything else you would like to ask me, either in regards to the channel, or you've got requests or anything like that, or you just want to come and hang out, join the Discord server. It is linked in the video description. There are a whole bunch of like-minded legends who are in there chatting about everything from guitar sounds to their favorite albums, to recording techniques, to practice tips, to coffee, food, and cats, all the good stuff. Have a fantastic week. I'll see you next time.